Have the gets really slipped up, or is green still best? Today on WAAAGH Wednesday, we're going to come with the stats and the facts. Of course, our honorable mentions. And then we do have notes from a top player coverage. Someone from last week, thanks to the Rewatch gang, reached out to me, gave me some notes. So I'd like to go over their list and have a good time getting stuck in with there. So, of course, if you're not used to what we're doing here, let's get stuck in, get with the stats and the facts. So a lot of conjecture has been made about our Ork boys, and people are wondering, have we fallen off to being some basic gits? So the Orks are sitting at a 48% win rate, a bit down from where they were before, but I personally think it's a bit of the increase of players that we're getting in this, and the fact that a lot of the time we're getting eventful, good placings and doing well at events, but we're really struggling to overall win them and go over the threshold. So here on Stats Hubert, shout out to this gate. Oh, you can see as we look at the Orks, 202 players with a 48 win percentage. We have still to this day only one event win. I think that's the most standout thing that I see now. That's still a huge jump, guys, if you really consider where we were before the essentially just the gas changes and the Mando changes. We were sitting at one of the worst, quote unquote, factions in 40K, but I think the balance of what we had as predators came down. We don't really have that many predators anymore, so we have a lot of good mad things that we can actually get into and match up into. But I don't think it's necessarily easy for every person that decides to pick up and pilot them. So I think then on the other side we have gits that are just running War Horde, getting stuck in and having a bit of a harder time. Now the majority of these players are War Horde, the vast majority of them. But as we look at the stats and as we look at the honorable mentions here that we're going to look at, and shout out to the chats live. Whoa, what's up, chat? I see you guys. Had to get my mech boy head going because streamer already started to fight me. Yeah. So as we look at the honorable mentions, we're going to see how really diverse of detachments we're actually able to come out with. Of course, our niche generals that go out there, or those war boss, those war chiefs, to find a way to get stuck in, even with the most nuanced detachments. So even though we did slip up, I think context matters a lot, and we got to take things as a whole, right? So as though I do think some of our opponents, like chat's kind of bringing up, hey, I think that people also got somewhat familiar with Gaz and kind of know what's going on. I do think that's a big of a factor, and I think that is what's stopping us from winning events for the most part. But really can't put my nose on it yet. Just put my finger on it, whatever you guys want to. So why I choose my nose to put my finger on it? So as for honorable mentions, what I want to say here is the first two lists that I'm gonna give a shout out to were actually from the week before last that I just overlooked, and I finally found them. So shout out to these gits, but still we do have good diversity among the rest of these honorable mentions. So as of the week before last, we have Steven Adams with his 5-1 War Horde list at Battle of Salvation. We have Johan Hastovo with a 4-1 Cult of Speed list. We have Jordan Salomon with his 5-0. Didn't win the event, got third place. Kipler's event. And then we have John Holbrook, the legendary green boss himself, going 5-1 at Rooks GT with his green tide, dusting off the boys, even though they did take that points increase alongside everybody else. So then we have Greg Lumb with his 4-1 Bully Boyz list that was still able to come out on top with another Bully Boyz showing off. Then we have Chris Yelwick with his 4-1 Green Tide list. And then last but certainly not least, we have Peter Herblid that we actually covered last week, who was the person who actually won an Ork event. So we actually won an Ork event for the GT, but this week he ended up going 4-1. Though he did end up taking pretty much the same exact list. So we're not going to put him up for the vote to go over his list all over again. But some of these other lists you're going to see right now. If you're live in chat, if you're here, make sure you go vote on actually what list we're going to cover, because that's the one I'm actually going to get stuck into, right? And as for the rewatch gang, right, you guys actually influenced the list we're going to cover today going forward. So make sure if you're rewatch gang, let us know what you want to see in the comment. Leave likes, let us know what's going on, because you guys matter. And as for chat, you guys know what to do now. Let's see who gets stuck in. Now, anything else in chat? What's going on here? Yeah, the list of 22. 2 mechs and 20 boys, right? That's what Peter's list was 2 20-man units, and both had the mech, which was very, very unique, right? That was very, very odd. So he's still popping it up, still doing great stuff, and a lot of these lists are really doing great stuff. I was happy to see Cult of Speed and such like that, and such. So let's take a look at the blue Ford. So let's take a look at Blue Ford's list. Oop. Sorry, I gotta show you this list first. So Blue Ford's Call to Arm Bully Boyz list, and we actually do have his actual notes. So let's take a look at that real quick for the chat. So we have, and we actually have a picture of his army real quick. While you guys look at that, boom, I'll bring the picture back up. But he likes to call this his blue wall. And actually, Blue Ford was a prior war chief that was one of the first pilots of the Pain Wall that we covered around here as for the event. So nice. So let's take a look. We have a Beast Boss with Ed Stompa. Then we have Boss Snickra, Gazgul Thraka still finding his way onto these Bully Boyz lists. You guys let me know, for the people who still run Bully Boyz, how do you feel about gas, right? Do you take gas often? Yes or no? Let me know. We have 2 war bosses and then a Zagra Wartsnagus. So I'll just show my deck right here, as I have done with my Bully Boyz list before and videos and such. I absolutely love Zagra being on my Bully Boyz list. So we have a 10-man unit of Snagus for that Beast Boss, 2 trucks, 1 battle wagon, which I think that's like the perfect, that's like the perfect amount of transports, in my opinion, at least if you're playing on GW. Pretty hard to hide more. Let's say if you take it to 4 or 5 trucks, hard to do that. Double wagons, most likely never hide in the second one. In this case, 2 trucks, 1 wagon. Like to see that. 1 unit of the Def Coptas with all rockets. 1 big unit of Gretchen for Zod, 1 small unit for your home objective. We have the new and improved Mandos, because Mandos lead the way, baby. He took his war gear was the Breacher Ram, a burner boy, rocket launcher, and then a power claw. Of course, if you don't know, when you split this unit, you get to choose where your little invuln grot goes, your bomb squid goes, and all your war gear option goes into one of those squads, and then the other one's your we die because we screen unit. 1 unit of Mega Knobs for Gaz. He has that unit of Kill Saw and Power Claw. That way it's diverse based off what you want to going into for Gaz, because you are getting that +1 to wound. So if you're going into something like a demon or something, hey, I may just want more Power Claws because I don't need all the AP. If I'm going into something that requires good armor, good AP, I'm going to use my Kill Saws. So love to see that. Then we have 2 big bricks of knobs. Yeah, let's go. I actually really love seeing that now. As much as I do like when people take Mega Knobs, and Mega Knobs are definitely really cool. I think the models are pretty lame, though. Let's be honest, right? Those are one of the models I want to see change next edition before I get off track. But as for like the idea of taking Mega Knobs into a Bully Boyz list, so they're nice and thick with their armor of contempt access for shooting and fighting on deaths, if you double wall for their feel no pins, that's really fun. But 10-man knob units feel way better when you use stratagems on them. So actually, I really appreciate that. So he has 2 big 10-man units of knobs, and then the Storm Boys. And then as for where everything here was going, as for the list, he would put the knobs into the trucks, and he would put the gas brick inside of the wagon, because he likes to do that, because the new backup for how he was doing. And we'll actually talk about some of the things he will change on the list going forward. We do that at the end, right? So but right now, the good things I wanted him to say was he was pretty interested and pretty happy with the Copta unit right at the off the back, which is the funny part, because I did ask him, like, how do you feel about that Def Copta unit? Like, it's always good, food for thought, but a lot of the times at that 80-point cost, you're fighting with boys, you're fighting with flash kits, you're fighting with a lot of stuff for that cost. Though Def Copters are very different as a profile. I'm just bringing up that a lot of the times people end up throwing that around. He was absolutely loving the knobs and the war bosses and the 10-man units in this detachment. Big deal for him, because there's the camp of gets that run mobs, there's the gets that run on mega knobs, and then there's some exclusive dudes that actually get down with the big 10-man bricks of 10-man knobs in the Bully Boyz list. So he was really into that, and like I said, I do have notes from him himself. So as we were saying, I did ask him his MVPs and everything like that, so he'll let me know. Sorry, I'll let you guys know at the end of that. So as we were saying, for his Mandos, he would pretty much in each matchup, 5 Mandos would be near his expansion, walling off, or ready to walk on, depending on the deployment. His second screen would generally field his screen is backfield. And actually, I found that to be kind of often like the common case too, right? For my Bully Boyz, or just using my Mandos, actually, excuse me, is the second 5-man Mando unit doesn't always have to be put forward, guys, right? If you're looking new at this and you're considering Mandos and you're starting to run them a lot and you capacity, if the enemy is competitive, a lot of the time they're going to have their own infiltrators which are going to block out your guys. Don't just infiltrate them just for the sake of infiltration because they have it, right? So in this case, because he doesn't have a bunch of grots and such too, he ends up putting that unit into his backfield just to end up screening and such. Of course, he'll bring it forward later throughout the matchup, to the game. So let's take a look at his actual path to victory real quick with these gets. What's up, chat? Yeah, so that's what he was putting in there. People are feeling you guys are feeling the Bully Boyz, huh? Yeah, Bully Boyz is always like pretty popular, to be honest. Do I got the stuff up? I got the stuff up. So as you can see, calls to arms, he got 4th place. So let's look at his path to victory real quick. He has some notes, so I won't put too much conjecture there on what happens, because he already let us know what he was thinking and what happened. So he said playing CSM. That's what's going on here. So it's Renegade Raiders. We have a Chaos Lord, we have Cypher, Lord Discordant, and Vashtor. A cultist mob, 2 rhinos, 2 bikers, 2 predators with the auto cannons, 2 vindicators, double noise marines, double plague marines. All right, cool. A little bit of a new, niche version of them. He said it was a Fabius Bile CSM mission C layout 6. Ton of shooting because of the units within the transports, which were typically plague marines. So they were able to shoot because the firing deck. Multiple, the vindicators were a big deal, but the enemy did keep one of his vindicators off the field, which Ford decided that was a huge benefit to him, because then he ended up just getting Zod up the field on turn 2 by getting his wand, right? Because that's the big deal, right? People always wonder what's going on with Zod when I'm running this style of list, and it's really about just being able to reach out and touch your enemy, kind of like to line them up with your punch, right? Just imagine if your gear could just hold on here real quick. Let me grab you by your chin, right? And that's how it works. Sometimes you're holding the enemy in place to not get line of sight on some of your more effective units and such. And so, like he was saying here, it was pretty straightforward that he wanted to just run up, touch those rhinos, touch those units, force them to disembark their units to get rid of Zod, not be able to move up the field because he wants to fight on his side of the field. And then on that turn, he ended up getting knobs out to start crumping them. Turn 3, I was worried since he was ready to move a ton of the units, but one of his vindicators whiffed pretty hard, and things started to snowball from them since he really couldn't hold primary. He said in this matchup, the gas wagon didn't really do that much. So yeah. All in all, it was really about Zod getting the enemy out to really commit to Zod because of his point cost, his speed, the amount of actual dice it takes to dislodge him. The enemy will typically overinvest into Zod, which really lines up your next punch right there. So that's essentially how that ended up working out there. Let me see if anything there. He said, yeah, Cool. So yeah, turn 2, he ended up forcing most stuff into the middle as well, right? So if you notice, the enemy doesn't, sometimes the enemy will just have this built in. I have to reserve these units because it's what I do in all my practice games, or because whatever reason it is. That's typically a mistake, against our gits, our orcs. So if you see the enemy over reserving, or even in this case, it's one unit, make sure you take advantage of that and you highly pressure them, right? Control those reserves, like we always like to talk about, those reserve lanes and such. So I like to see that. Put the pressure on when the enemy made the mistake. So then we go into his next matchup, which was the Death Watch. Funny, I used to have a Death Watch army. So we have Captain, Judiciar, Lieutenant with combi weapon, and then a Watchmaster. One big unit of Assault Intercessors, a Death Watch Veteran Squad, 2 units of Death Watch Terminator Squads, a Fortis kill double Fortis kill teams. I lied. Triple Fortis kill teams, an Outrider, and then a Redemptor Dreadnought. Fortis kill teams are pretty much the intercessor bodies. And yeah, they're just intercessors, so they're kind of like Hellblasters in there. Terminator squads, nice old school unit. As for how this goes, he said it was mission M, layout 6. He said the enemy didn't necessarily position best with his best shooting units, so he was able to charge 2 of them on turn 1 with Zod. He said he also overwatched them instead of utilizing a fights first heroic, which that was to his benefit. He said he ended up charging some more commandos with another 10-man unit. He said if the enemy ended up going first and indirect shot his Zod unit, he could pretty much just pick them all up. So he said since he was able to do that with turn 1, like I said about the holding, imagine it gets chin, right? You're lining it up for a punch. At that point, because the enemy is just dislodging Zod and the Mandos and just, really just trying to respond to whatever's in their face, it means it's really just lining up the next punch and cleaning them off on that sense. So he said in that case, he just staged up in the middle, cracked into him on the following turn. Since he shoved everything to the middle. And he also said he was able to take his home by turn 3. So awesome. Great job there. Big W, the 96-point win there. And then we move on to his actual loss, which was interesting to look at because a lot of people are facing this right now throughout the meta, which is the Raven God. So the scrawny gets. No, I'm just kidding. So we have Sean, captain with a jump pack, Shrike, a lieutenant with combi weapons, a intercessor. Let me make sure I'm showing you guys. Yeah, okay. A intercessor squad, an impulsor squad, 1 unit of assault intercessors with a jump pack, 1 big brick of devastator centurions, double units of inceptors, 1 with the plasma, and then 1 with the assault, but the small unit is the assault, so only 3 men. 1 incursor unit, a storm speeder hammer strike, 1 big unit of Vanguard veterans with the jump packs. They do all have Inferno pistols. Then a small unit of veterans with jump packs with the 5-man unit with Inferno pistols, and then a Vindicator. So as for how this matchup went, let me pull it back over here. You can see. He said this was mission L, layout 1. He said his opponent went first. He said going first would have been a huge issue. But yeah, I think he worded it kind of weird. He said going first would have been good. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I thought. So he would have actually liked to go first. It doesn't look like he went first there. One thing that he was talking about that was a big deal, which I was like, oh, that's true, is the Raven Guard unit can access precision with any one of its units. So in this case, when the 5-man unit of jump pack intercessors we're going to get charged into the Zod unit and such, he had to essentially hide Zod because he didn't want Zod to get precisioned out turn 1 and killed, which would make Zod's unit pretty worthless. Ultimately, he had like Snickrot near him for a heroic, but the intercessors ended up killing like 10 grots, he said, which was a big deal. He said then he decided, well, I'm going to move 3 units towards his enemy's natural expansion on turn 2 and 3. He said his big blunder was leaving the knobs inside of the truck for him to ingress the Vanguard vets and utilize their Inferno pistols to move, blow up the truck, and then charge the knobs inside. Of course, when you get blown up from your transport, you cannot access your fight on death anymore. So in that case, he just lost the whole unit for free. He said he was looking pretty bleak until Snickrot was able to make a big charge on turn 4. And solo Shrike. Yeah. Whoa, let's go, Shrike. Snickrot went in there and just stabbed up Shrike. Let's go. So I like to see that. Sorry. And then Gaz and his Mega Knobs went up to the middle. He said he really just had no way to deal with the Centurions just flying over the board. It was a pretty close game. The opponent initially thought that he had won, but ultimately it was just a narrow loss to them with a 73-point win. But he was in good spirits, and he said it was all good. Just pretty hard to interact with everything and deal with it. But that's what I like to see, guys. See, even when you take a loss and you get Blue Ford's an excellent player, experienced veteran player, he was very excited to just let us all know that Snickrot went out there and took Shrike's head off. And then Gaz was bullied the middle of the table. So, if you're going to lose from some DACA from far away, yeah, you can live with it, right? You get so shout out to Blue Ford. That's how his game 3 went. Ended up losing that one to the new Raven God. Then we move on to his game 4. Let's look at this real quick. Let me pull you guys back over to a Space Wolves list with Gladius Task Force. So we have Arjack Rockfist, Captain with the Jump Pack, Iron Priest, a Librarian, Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, Logan Gribnar, and then Wolfguard Battle Leader with Honor Vehement. 1 drop pod, which is hilariously awesome. A Assault Intercessor with Jump Pack, a Friend Region Wolf, 1 Gladiator Lancer, Repulsor Executioner, a Stern Guard Squad, 1 big unit of Wolfguard Head Takers, 1 unit of Wolfguard Terminators is a minimum sized unit, and then a big old brick of Wolfen with the Storm Shields. So as for how this one went with this get, it was Mission O, Layout 6. He said they had played before, and that he had actually, and that our get here, Blue Ford, had lost this matchup prior by about 10 points. Pretty much the big Repulsor Executioner was a problem, as he called it, the big tank. But in this case, this big tank wasn't in position where he said it could be, so let him rush his truck and hide it in some south objective, the 6x4, the terrain piece. And he also didn't get Logan down, which is important because Logan is defect aura until like around turn 4, which he thinks was his biggest mistake because now he was in defect aura, and he'll explain why. His dogs were also a big deal to a certain degree because they were pretty strong and almost baited him out. But he was able to just get stuck into them with the battle wagon, and also just kind of keep them back because of that battle wagon. Zod, turn 2, ran up and rushed the enemy's natural expansion, charged it, held it for a couple turns, and then Gaz jumped out turn 3, took the middle, charged everybody, and got killed and murdered everybody. Let's see. Ultimately, when he had to fight on death, Gaz was able to clip out with everybody that was fought on death with him, and Makar was the only one left standing. So his Wolfen got charged by Knobs, but he ended up interrupting. He said if Logan would have been down, then he wouldn't have been able to fight on death and do the interrupt. So that was pretty much one of the big deals there that we were talking about with the CP management and the enemy, utilizing that. So great job there with that matchup. Can we get a whoa whenever the Orks beat up on the Space Wolves? Love to see that, of course. And we move on for it because he got a big 96-point win there. And then we go for his last matchup. Let's see where we're going on here. Where he goes into the Raven Guard again. So he has Raven Guard and their new Shadowmark Talon with their sneaky gets. So we have Ashton Shaw, Captain with the Jump Pack, Strike again, and then Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. An Intercessor Squad, an Assault Intercessor Squad with Jump Pack, 2 of those. a big brick of Centurion squad, and then a small 3-man unit of Centurion squad, 2 units of Inceptors, 1 with the plasma as the large unit, and then 1 with just the bolters. Well, actually 2 of those, sorry. 2 of the 3-man units with bolters in this case. 1 big unit of Vanguard veterans with the jump pack, and then another big 10-man unit of Vanguard veterans with jump pack. So 2 big bricks of those Vanguard vets with the jump packs on here for the sneaky gets. But as for how this went, he said it was mission I and layout 1. He said no vehicles for this Raven Guard, but it was still impossible to catch those Centurions. He said his opponent went first and left several units touchable by Zod. So in this case, Blue Ford got a nice big 6-inch advanced, ran up to touch 6 Centurions, and then also touched 6 interceptors and 3 interceptors, and 5 assault intercessors, while Zod did 2 wounds. He said he was able to utilize the grots to block out the character, and his 10-man units heroic into Zod. Some kind of 10-man unit heroic into Zod. Yeah. Sorry, I guess he had his Raven Guard character with that 10-man unit of Vanguard. So they jumped into heroic, and because they ended up jumping into heroic, he was able to just keep them there, and that allowed Blue Ford to run up and hide with everything and stage everything. But on the following turn, Blue Ford made the same mistake again, where the opponent ingressed the other unit of Vanguard vets, ran up, used infernal pistols into the truck, popped the truck, and then charged the knobs. But for some reason, yeah. Let's see. Sorry, I was looking. Oh, okay. So he's saying in this case, though, the difference was, sorry, he ended up, I misread that because I got too excited. In this case, the truck didn't get blown up because he had rolled the 5. He told me the whole story, guys. Sometimes he's so excited. Love to see the energy. In this case, yeah. So in this case, he ended up not getting the truck blown up, right? Even with the oath, I did 5 wounds, failed 3 of the 5. CP reroll, rolled 5 to live with 3 wounds. Yeah, okay. He said, yeah, in reality, he should have just simply charged the truck. The enemy should have charged the truck and just done some mortals. And then instead, he charged the commandos and just killed them. So in reality, he's saying that the enemy, instead of trying to shoot and get all this effective shooting off into his truck and just pop it, he really should have just charged it, because if you destroy it in the charge phase, because the unit declared a charge, he could still activate pile in and punch all the knobs inside. So the enemy did made that mistake, which is ending up game sealing in that case, because then he wasn't able to kill all those stuff. On the following turn, he, like you said, he ran up, charged the 10 knobs into some of the units. He said he did get his Zod unit killed. Of course, I mean his Gaz unit killed from some of the Inceptors. Ultimately, his Snaggy units made a charge into a 3-man unit of Centurions, consolidated and basing his intercessors. And even though Shrike charged into them, he only ended up killing 2. And then the Snaggers punched back and again killed Shrike while bringing him down. We're finishing off the Centurions the following turn. And then it came down to just a couple trades late. Turn 5, it came down to missions. But he got behind enemy lines and tempted targets, so he ended up not getting it. And boom, winning it by a very, very close game there. So sorry. He told me in detail every moment what was happening, and I got lost in the sauce there. Sorry, guys. I read a lot of stuff. So nonetheless, great job by that. Very, very close game to pull it off, but he pulled it off against the Raven Guard there, getting an 88-point win to that Raven Guard list to make up for the sneaky gets prior at the event. So shout out to Blue Ford. Thank you for the notes. As for his list, he has a Beast Boss, Boss Snickrock, Gazgul Thraka, 2 War Bosses for the 10-man knobs, Zagra, a 10-man Beast Snagga Boss unit, and then 2 trucks. He has the Battle Wagon, 3-man unit of Gef Koptas, the big brick of Gretchen, 1 minimum size unit of Gretchen, the Mandos, Gazgul Fraka and his Gits, and then 2 units of 10 Knobs and Storm Boys. As we said, typically he would put Gaz in the wagon. He called that the Gaz wagon, and then the trucks into the knobs. Sorry, the knobs into the trucks, and then you can put the Snagus into reserve. But of course, based off your matchup, you can alternate what goes in trucks. You could leapfrog stuff out, though. Of course, that's a good deal too. And he was really into the Dev Koptas. As for the end and things that he would possibly switch up, he said honestly he was considering dropping the wagon, switching up for and getting the Koptas possibly out because of the points of the wagon for a second unit of Storm Boys, right? Because he's just wanting points. Drop the Mega Knobs down to 3 and pick up another truck and another unit of Knobs with a War Boss. He said that, but a 5-man unit instead. He said MVP was either the 10 units of trucks and the War Boss, as long as they weren't going into anything that had -1 damage. He said also the Koptas were pretty awesome. T6 and their saves is really cool. Pretty hard for their enemies to bring them down when they're all stuck on gas and killing knobs. And yeah, so as for that, he said that really he would just kind of swap out some of the transports to try to get more trucks, possibly get more punchy gets to get up on the menu. And other than that, he was really into the list. So thank you for that to you, Gits, and everybody that got stuck in. And Blue Ford with the whoa for doing great with the Bully Boyz. Thanks for the notes. Of course, if you're one of those Gits that we cover your list or your honorable mentions, hit me up. Let me know what's going on. Give me some notes. We can talk about it. The Gits all want to know what you were thinking, what's going on. So thank you to that. And let's go to the honorable mention. Let's look at what you Gits voted on. I didn't make a prepared presentation of each one of these lists because I was honestly quite curious as to what you guys would do. And I don't want it would take a bit to make every single one. So I was like, let me just put everything out there, give you guys options, and see what you guys decide to do. So we're going to end the poll here in a little bit. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get your little votes in your Gits. Last minute. Let's go. If you haven't done it yet, let me know. All right. We're ending the poll now. So it looks like what Gits came out to shine. It looks like the Green Tide. Whoa! I'm actually a little surprised by that, if you want me to be honest. I'm a little surprised. Not because I don't think it's worth it, because I think it's actually pretty sick that you guys did that. But I was surprised because typically War Horde is the most popular, and it was pretty good up there in votes. And you do see a lot of the time Bully Boyz show off, because people are like them in the community as a whole. And then Cult of Speed, you just never see what's around. So of course, if you're in the rewatch gang, let me know what's going on. We can get back to some of these lists, and if not, you can look them up because I did put the events they were at. So with that being said, let me pull up these guys in chat. So chat's funny. They're like, Murder probably, I blame Murder Blood Moons. He did about 10 of those votes. So that's funny. Let's look at that. So as I get this stuff together, you guys, we're going to take a look at John Holbrook's. Here it is. 5 and 1 Green Tide list. Yeah. All right. So let me clear some of these tabs I got open because I got so many tags open, you guys. Because I was ready for this. Let me get rid of some of these. Bada boom, bada bing. Getting some of these down. Let's go. Yeah. Surprise with the Green Tide. Like I said, a rewatch gang, let me know because I will be interested in covering more stuff for sure and other lists and stuff like that. So get rid of these. I had so many tabs open. I was like, all right, dude, it could be any of these. I was looking at all these lists, to be honest. So remember, honorable mentions, shout out you Gits. I have looked at all your lists. A lot of you guys were pretty sick. So yeah. And of course, we can get back to you. So don't worry about that. Okay. And then let's get to the Git. So we have John Holbrook and his Green Tide list at the Rooks 40K Open. And people are saying that on War Games Live, if you look at the Ork Bat Rec, It was stream game 1. Thanks to Arcane Asylum. If you get to the channel member, dude. Channel members are super awesome. I see you guys going off in chat right now. But yeah, so if you guys want to go check out that game, check out War Games Live so you can actually see this used in real time. John's a super veteran. He's been in the Worlds. He's played it into like literally Worlds events. He's been invited, won his golden ticket. We've covered him in the past. He did put Green Tide down for a while. So keep in mind that he is one of the best. So you're looking at these Green Tide lists and you're like, man, I'm struggling. Don't worry about it. You got to figure out Green Tide. They do take a little bit of time. They're their own niche. But whenever the meta gets to elite, some crazy git comes out with the Horde and says, let me show you how to get stuck in, lads. And that's our boy John here. So let's look at John Holbrook's list. I never really got to talk to him directly, but I get to know him and we exchanged information. I don't think he's on those kind of social medias, but what's up to this kid? He goes, yep, go take, assassinate, and call the Horde. He always says this when we were like with those exchange, those faraway texts. It doesn't even matter. Like we talked about in our Green Tile videos. Trust me, it doesn't matter when people are trying to take that. So he has Boss Snickra, Gazgul, Thraka, 1 Pain Boy with Bloodthirsty Belligerents, triple War Bosses, and then a Weird Boy with Brutal Cunning. He took 4, right? Yeah, 4 big 20-man units of boys and then a 10-man unit of boys. Don't sleep on this 10-man unit of boys, right? I haven't played Green Tide in probably like, I don't know, probably about like maybe 9 months or so. But I was taking about those 10 boys, maybe less than that, but maybe more like 8 months. But still, either way, I was taking that 10-man unit of boys also along them. They still take access to the strats. That first activation, at least over 5 up invuln still. They can grow back if the enemy doesn't finish them off. Totally useful to do that. Then we have double battle wagons with the Ard case, 2 units of Gretchen, and then the 1 unit of Mandos. Now, actually, with John's list in the past, he didn't have Gaz, and he did generally have Mandos, right? And he had Mandos, but he was crazy, and he would bring like 22, right? And at one point, when he had his prior Green Tide list, he was one of those crazy gets that would actually go over the threshold of how many bodies. So he would bring like 5 20-man units of boys, and then he would bring 22 Mandos, and so he would bring like all of the most redundant, crazy amount of bodies. So it was interesting that in this case he actually went for 1 unit of Mandos instead, and then stuck Gaz in there. Right, he stuck Gaz into his list, which is the big crazy part because it was mentioned on the channel when we looked at this. We were like, people might take, they might take Gaz right in Green Tide, but now we're actually seeing this, right? Because this is one of the Green Tide lists we're covering. There was another that also did well, but now we see people taking him in there. Remember, keep in mind that you have access to reroll wounds, so now you got +1 to wound, and in Green Tide you can reroll wounds. This detachment is very CP intensive. So in this case, the Pain Boy having Bloodthirsty Belligerents is something that I've seen quite often. It's interesting because I always hesitate to put it because it's a lot of points, but the stratagems are very, very effective and efficient in this attachment. So you need them. So he pretty much always brings them. And then the Weird Boy with Brutal but Cunning. I think a lot of the matchup makes the matchup will kind of determine that, but I do think the 10-man unit could be used with the Weird Boy. But since it has an enhancement, there's a chance that you just stick it with the 20, to be honest, right? Because when you have the enhancement, you're taking advantage of if it contains 10 or more, you get to re-roll the charges. You can re-roll the advance. I don't see that being necessarily valuable in the 10-man unit as much, but in some matchups where you want to risk that late game, deep backfield charge, you could. So yeah, he had 2 wagons, which was also very unique to his style because before he used to just put stuff on the line. But I think with just how the meta plays out now, you can't be that open and disrespectful to the enemy. And for the sake of time and your own back, you don't want to bring a whole bunch of bodies like you said before. Because I remember that's the one thing we switched up that we were talking about was like, so man, your list is crazy, but how do you even play time? How do you finish games in time? And he's like, yeah, that could be an issue sometimes, and not because he can't finish, but like you start making kind of decisions of, okay, I might have just messed up here, because I was just trying to finish and go through this. So as for that, let's take a look at what else he had for his matchups, because that's what we want to look at. Boom, here we go. And this was a lot of good. What is it? 6 rounds? 6 rounds? Man, 6 rounds playing the green tide he gets. You know what I'm saying? Like, oof. Oh. So let's see. So going into his first matchup, we have the Shadow Legion. Okay. Oh, and one thing I want to say is I do think Gaz does, not just because John is saying that, but because there could just be an issue where you just didn't really have the damage before on Green Tide, and I think Gaz is kind of there to solve that problem, where the enemy would just chew through you too quickly. I think the wagons are conserving the mobs, and then Gaz is helping you melt through the problematic units, so you're not just getting you know, buzzsawed through, which happens now. So we have one Bellicor, one Bloodthirster, a Skullmaster, one Nurgling unit, a Beast of Nurgle, one brick of Blood Crushers, a Fleshhound unit, a Screamer, Chaos Lord with Jump Pack, a Chaos Terminator, one unit of Cultist, a unit of Havocs, and a War Dog Huntsman. So a bunch of hodgepodge of what they can put together. CSM is just kind of odd like that where they're at right now. Not that I think they're horrible or anything. I just think they're very niche in how they're trying to figure their stuff out, because there's a lot going on. So as for, let's go into this next second game. There's a lot going on. Like I feel like they took a lot of their rules and either nerfed them or just put them for other factions. So no shade on the CSM, because they can still make stuff work. But it's interesting. Then we have his second matchup, which is into the World Eaters. So this is a Demon Prince of Khorne, the favor of Khorne, Lord on Juggernaut, Slaughterbound. 2 of the 5-man units of Terminators, 1 big brick of 8-bound, double small man units of Exalted 8-bound, double Forge Fiends, Hellbrute, Jackals, and then Mauler Fiends. So as long as you're not letting your boy mobs just get mobbed up and blasted away from those Forge Fiends, and you stage up, because they really can't do anything to your wagons other than try to run up and pop them with the 8-bound themselves, would give you options for like getting heroics and boys quicker up the field with heroics as well. At that point, it's not the issue that they're going to shoot your wagon, blow it up, and then charge it and then kill it. It's far more likely that they're just going to try to chip away your units. The 8-bound Exalted 8-bound with their changes can pop a wagon. It's not even that reliable. There's a chance that they're going to have to pop additional AP in there too, to make sure they get it off. So they're going to have to CP investment, and then you're going to get just good exchanges on them. And then he had a 100-point W on that. I think that they're just really elite. And in that matchup, not that World Eaters can't win, because World Eaters can totally win that matchup. It's just things would get kind of hectic, right? If you're trying to can you just imagine these elite big bricks trying to run up into the Orks, and it's just like, oh, sorry guys, you guys are getting chewed up. Bad trades. No. So then we go into his third matchup. Love the string Green Tide making a comeback though. Pretty exciting. Third matchup, it is again the 8-bound. I'm not the 8-bound, sorry. I meant World Eaters. I don't know why I said 8-bound. Then we have Karn and then a Slaughterbound. Then we come into a big unit of Khorne Zerkers, a 10-man unit, and a Rhino, double unit of Chaos Bond, double unit of regular 8-bound, a small unit of Exalted 8-bound with a large unit of Exalted 8-bound, 1 Forge Fiend, 1 Goremonger, a Hellbrute, double Jackals, and then a Mauler Fiend. So this one, little bit more volume, at least from the Khorne Zerker unit and Karn the Betrayer. First-hand experience, there is a chance that with enough stack buffs from Sustain and then Karn with the rerolls, that this unit could really put a really big hurting on a unit of boys themselves. Chaos Spawn being able to run up on boys and touch them or just get in their way because of their scout advance charge. Goremongers being able to infiltrate. Now, not that they're just going to be easily just be able to pick the units up, but it does allow them to play the midfield a little bit more, which depending on the mission would be kind of interesting. Here it was a 71-point win. So I really like to know what that mission was that made it different in that case, or if the world leader player was just a little bit more wise and just had more volume of punching. So cool to see there with that one, with another win there. But here we go into the 4th round, which is his loss, which I think people are saying was on War Games Live if you want to go look at it itself. But this was into the fire. Okay, and I can see I've held the others. We have Salamanders, Firestorm Assault. We have Adrex Agatone, a Judiciar with Champion of Humanity, a Lieutenant with Phobos, then with Combi, and then Vulcan Heastan. We have an Impulsor, 2 big units of Blade Guard and triple Eradicator squads. 1 small unit of Infernus, 1 Invader, 1 Land Raider Redeemer, a Repulsor Executioner, and then a Scout. So I'd like to see this game. I don't know this is on War Games Live, so oops for me, but I can go back and watch that. So I'd like to see what happened with this one and the mission and such, what was going on. But as for Ironstorm Assault, they're one of those factions that, you know, those few Space Marines that are like, we'll meet you up in the middle and bang it out with you. And then they do have the combined arms factor. Those Blade Guard are actually punching up because of the character and the veteran and this enhancement for Champion of Humanity. They have access to strats that make them +1 to wound, I believe, as well. So they can actually put some good punches on the Orks. Good combined arms between his tanks and then the flamers from the Redeemers. Nasty Overwatch in that case. So you can't really disrespect this army too much with staging up with everything. And I would just really like, I'm going to have to just go give this game a watch to see what's going on there myself personally. And you should too. Love to see it. You know, love to see him still do well, but love to see the Green Tide. So I have a good time watching that. It's just Green Tide is a hard army to land. We'll just say that, guys, right? So if he's not making full contact with the enemy early, not when it's that go turn, or get caught in fights in the open, not on primary objectives necessarily, you know, and there's a chance that the Manders were meeting them in the middle and banging it out. So that's pretty interesting. And then we go chat's saying some of the things. All right, that's good. Yeah, I think it's worth watching. That's a good way to kind of digest how this might go wrong if you play this style list. Then we go into his second to last matchup, which was into the Necrons. He had a Qatar, the Foy Dragon, Luminar Zeras, Orkan the Diviner, Hexmark Destroyer, Royal Wardens, and double Scorpec Lords, 1 big 20-man unit of warriors, a Crypto Thrall, a Flayed One, Ophidian Destroyers, triple Scorpec Destroyers is 3-mans, a Locust Destroyer, a Reanimator, a Doomsday Ark, and a Ghost Ark. The interesting thing is with the Warden and the 20-man unit, it at least lets you know that they can actually fall back and shoot, which is typically like the easiest, you know, biggest hole to exploit with Necrons if they are playing that kind of elite hyper way to play. But I think the rest of the units supporting this Necron, that 1 Necron unit that's problematic, aren't problematic enough for the Orks. Between like the volume of activations, the OC, their durability, all those units are going to get blended out. The unit's going to regen. The unit's going to tank a lot of the damage. Anything that's not itself rerolling wounds is now near Gaz, and Gaz is going to have lethal. You know, it's just they're going to be able to chew through a lot of that stuff. It's going to be great. So 96-point win there. Love to see that whenever going into Necrons. Love when Orks beat up on Necrons. And then we go into his last matchup. Sorry, his absolute last matchup. So he's saying World Eaters again. So in the stats and the facts, guys, when I looked at like how many players we had, Ork players had like 202 players last weekend. World Eaters had like 360, almost double. So if you're looking at this and you're like, man, he played World Eaters a lot. World Eaters are everywhere. Orks are a pretty decent, moderately respectable, popular army with a very consistent, you know, right around World Eaters with player representation. I think good 200. World Eaters are pushing into the 400s. They're just everywhere. So be ready to crump those guys. So we have a Crimson Tide here, Karn, Lord of Akado, Master, an Executioner, and the Slaughterbound. He had a big 20-man unit of Cornzerkers. Boy, that can blend up a 20-man unit of boys if it can get a hold of it first. 2 units of Chaos Spawns, the 2 very good units, Exalted, and double Forge Fiends, some double Goremongers, triple Hellbrutes, and then Jackals. Do like the Hellbrutes. Those Hellbrutes have like those continuous fights where they fight you, you hit them back, they fight again. If someone's dead, then they can pile in and keep going with momentum. Goremongers for the infiltration, kind of help him actually be able to get off on you first with all these chaos spawn. But if they misplay, in my opinion, what can kind of happen too right here with these, because he won 88.1 with these World Eaters kind of matchups, is they're used to being hyper aggressive and kind of just taking that mid space, maybe with their Goremongers and their chaos spawn. If you can allow Green Tide to leapfrog into the mid table by killing some of these units, setting up their screens so that you're following actual punchy problematic units can't make contact with their big meaty mobs, and you're just stuck punching wagons and stuff like that, or mandos, well, then you run out, take your chunk of flesh, and then you'll be followed up with getting hit with all the boys making contact, fighting you on objectives, completely destroying your primary, withstanding all of your fight backs, and then you're just stuck with the world leader players are just stuck in the melee. And that's kind of what looks like happened here again with the 88-point win there. John Holbrook getting into those world leaders for the final time, running through them. So let's take a look at his Green Tide list for last thoughts. We have one boss Snickrot, because we need a little get to do them activations. You can see everything here is quite expensive, in my opinion, and a lot of the time, the rest of the units that aren't, that you would be considered kind of like trash or transport, whatever, are also being used to stop the Green Tide big effective units from getting killed. So it's not like you can necessarily throw all of your more trash units away early, because then you just have nothing to score. So reserving your Snickrot to actually stay alive is not like not putting them in reserve. I mean, just keeping them alive is very, very important, in my opinion, in this list. One Gazgul, then a Pain Boy, War Boss, double War Bosses there, and then Weird Boy. You know what else is pretty cool, in my opinion? The triple War Boss. So one War Boss on each big mob unit was like the fundamental key thing, and you're like, these are the only units that really do damage. Now that you have Gasly eating one of those units, bro, that means you have 3 of them that are just war bosses, and then you have Gaz's unit also on the field that are just with these big units. Oh, that's so sick to see, because then it's just like, well, the unit that doesn't have a weird boy, I can still use a strat to regen him like if a weird boy was there, but ultimately I'm hitting you harder. So he dropped out all of, not all, but some of the Pain Boys, because Pain Boys are expensive. There's 75 points for a Pain Boy right now. He took out the Pain Boys and just paid for more War Bosses, paid for more gas. So in my opinion, it looks like, one, he paid for the ability to keep the boys safe by paying for wagons now, and he paid for more killing power and just loaded down on the bodies. He brought, let's see, 4. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 20-man bricks of boys, and then a 10-man unit. So it could be a weird boy and a war boss are one of the units. That way they can like re-roll the advance and then re-roll the charge, so they can have a more effective unit. So even though I do think that there's a chance that the unit was also able to run around and jump, depending on matchup and in the attempt longer charges because of strats, you can buff the charge. Totally possible too, but possible that he just put him in the boy, the weird boy with the war boss unit, so it's diverse in other matchups where I can still move this unit quicker up the field. If not, then the 10-man unit of boys can go with the weird boy. But in my case, in my opinion, right, and he also has 2 units of Grots, need to screen your backfield. But if you check out the games, also on War Games, I'm sure he used one of these units to screen, their matchups. And then the Mandos, because you need to control infiltration as an Ork. Don't sleep on having Mandos. If you're really not into paying for Mandos, fine. You can pay for a Snickrot, but you need to play the infiltration game. All right. So with that being said, shout out to John Holbrook. Love this get. Great job with the Green Tide. Ooh, man, whenever I see that kind of stuff with like just random lists, or like one more shout out to his honorable mentions list. Look at that, guys. Look at that. Come on, man. Where are you guys going to see that anywhere else? Everybody's going to make you think you can only play War Horde, though the majority of you are playing War Horde and will continue to, and it will continue to do best. Totally possible to play other detachments and still have very effective, fun games and come out winning and be considered competitive, quote unquote, right? So, somewhere around the meta, I'm sure there's people that are saying War Horde's the only real competitive version of Orks. I would say it's the most linear and consistent way and competitive way to play Orks because of the sheer value in the stratagems. But I wouldn't say by any means it's the only way to win games and be effective with Orks. So take a look at this, start getting creative, you get, because you can put gas wherever you want. And ultimately, shout out to that Cult of Speed list, because even though it didn't have gas, it had kill rigs. So he was still getting stuck in. So if you guys want to know, rewatch gang, let me know. Of course, check out the Wall Tactics Dice from Baron of Dice and leave a like, subscribe, share it, because the channel's still growing and it's still pretty small. There's a lot left to be seen, a lot left to grow. So if you want us to keep going and keep the wall growing so we can do more content, better content, after action reports, which we have one going right now, another one specifically to Crump the World Eaters, then let me know. And of course, shout out to the Rewatch Gang. Thanks to our boy Blue Ford here, the Square Hammer, for giving us the notes. Sorry if I started to gargle a little bit there at the end with my dumb reading, but I'm not a literate lad, right? I'm a tough lad, not that literate though. But there's always one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall. Oh, one thing to keep in mind. That was how I messed up the outro, you kids. All right, but there's always one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa.